All right. This is Team 19, Dr. Meeks, and we will be presenting our PowerPoint. All right, and Allie is first up. Go ahead.
Starting off, what is entrepreneurship? I really love that there were so many different definitions in this first little series. The biggest one, or the one that I found most consistent, was creating something new under a condition of uncertainty, and then the difference between risk, how you kind of you can measure the outcomes, whereas uncertainty, it's really hard to measure or even calculate them. And just some words that I thought like came to mind when I was thinking about entrepreneurship, having to take initiative, that idea of something being novel, innovative, little things like that. The whole idea about innovation itself, translating an idea into an actual good or service and creating value for people. I love that we really kind of hit home on the whole value creation, because I think that's super important. The next slide. So to be honest, effectuation, that was kind of the one that I didn't really resonate with me the most, but empathy, definitely. I thought it was huge that we pointed that out, because I feel like if you can't understand where someone else is coming from, you can't understand your customer. So I love that that was actually included in the discussion from this week. And then I just put on the slides Howard Stevenson's 6 personal traits of entrepreneurships, tolerating ambiguity, attention to detail, endurance was huge. I think it's super important that you can endure all the challenges that go along with being an entrepreneur.
Allie, that's great. And it goes perfectly into, why entrepreneurship is so difficult. And, commitment, perseverance, and dedication is a huge part of it. A lot of the supplemental videos, the TED Talk that we watched on What They Don't Tell You About Entrepreneurship from Mark, that was one of the ones where he was like, I can't, you think that you want to do a 9 to 5, and then you're here and you're like spending way more time than you ever expected to. And that goes into the next one, where empathy, like Allie talked about, is super important. It's really hard to be empathetic. It's hard to put yourself into that other person's shoes. So it's really hard to effectively communicate that paradigm. You have to have aligned perceptions with your market. So you need to see the same, you have to work on trying to see the same thing that they're seeing.
For sure.
Okay.
Next. We'll go to the next one there. Yeah. Oh, keep going. Down to 8.
There you go. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate that. And great job, Corey Ann. So whenever it comes to what factors influence entrepreneurial success, this one really resonated home with me because I do have a lot of entrepreneurs in my family, and so I do believe that whenever it comes to different factors, they definitely have to be able to take on certain risks. They have to be able to respond to certain opportunities. They have to be able to have quick action plans, planning and strategy. They have to be able to lead their team. They need to be able to encourage, communicate, know these goals, set common goals, and then of course they have to be creative. They have to be able to think outside of the box. You have to think of new ideas and implement those ideas for your business in order to be successful. So that's definitely what influences success for an entrepreneur, because they have to be able to be different in order to be successful. So that's, to me, that's what really hit home for success for me. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Jared on the next slide.
Absolutely, and that's a good point. And you don't only have to think about yourself as the entrepreneur, but also managing a team of entrepreneurs. And the book really argues that entrepreneurship is management, and that we need to have this paradigm shift because there are so many entrepreneurial mindsets out there and so many in the workforce, and we need to have this shift away from the traditional model that does tend to be more micromanaging, but also you can't swing the pendulum all the way the other way with a hands-off approach, a laissez-faire approach. We need to have this balance, manage them well, and not wasting our most valuable resource, the human resource. And the management should be fostering this lean thinking of trying new things, trying experiments. And you can see on this on this feedback loop that we need to build a minimum viable product and launch that, measure the results that happen, learn from that, and keep going through that loop. But it seems like, oh no, we're just going in circles. We're not even making any progress. But that's why I like this model so much. It's circles, but you're moving in the right direction, and you can scale as you go. And this entrepreneurial management really does reduce waste. It's small and it's scalable, and the point is to fail. Failure is learning. Thomas Edison said, I didn't actually fail 1,000 times when developing the light bulb. I just had an invention that took 1,000 steps, and looking at it this way is perfect. And we don't want to be like the traditional managers of having to have every little tiny piece in place before launching, such as the analogy of NASA. You know, you have the huge room and literally an act of Congress to launch a rocket, but rather a car. You teach someone to drive, you can steer easily, you can slow down and speed up, and once you're heading in the right direction, you can accelerate. So that is why I really like entrepreneurial style of management. And we can go ahead and go to the next person.
Yeah, and Corianne and I actually collaborated on this, the whole lean startup methodology. Just, you know, kind of a definition. It's a scientific approach to creating and managing startups to get that desired products into people's hands faster, which the whole idea is to be, you know, efficient. They had basic 5 principles. You know, entrepreneurs can be everywhere. That entrepreneurship is management, like you just mentioned, Jared. The whole validated learning is huge on the whole lean startup methodology itself. Innovative accounting, and then, like you just mentioned, the build, measure, learn feedback was huge.
And then we also had that eliminating uncertainty is huge. Process that methodology around the product development. We work smarter and not harder. That is like making sure that this is actually something that is going to be successful, and make sure that that product is, there's enough evidence to support yourself in completing it out. And then lean thinking, which we touched on earlier. Yeah, and then Allie, go ahead.
Okay. And then the idea of the MVP, the what was it? Minimum valuable product, I think it was. Again, build, measure, learn. Building the product and testing it in the real world. Measure the success and the failures, which are both, you know, important. And then learning, what are the accountable metrics we can actually measure. There were 5 whys, little questions that we can study and solve problems along the way. And then again, that big validated learning step, it really is the essential unit of progress for startups that follow the lean methodology. It's a really rigorous method for, you know, looking at the progress despite extreme uncertainty along the way, and running those little experiments to test, you know, each element of the main vision. I thought was really important too.
And before we move on to the next slide, I do want to let you guys know we do have a hard cutoff at 9:45. I believe that we should be done by then, but I just wanted to let you guys know. Just keep that in mind when we're presenting. All right, I apologize. Keep going.
Thanks.
Are we on my slide now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, I guess my slides are basically mostly about how we can kind of tie in together some of that information and summarize it. So the lean startup is an approach based on science. It allows for the entrepreneur to solve problems that need a solution, right? Is there a problem and does it need a solution? So the idea of validated learning in this process, it focuses on using research. That way we can decide, is our hypothesis correct, or do we need to go another route and maybe restructure? I think this kind of goes back to what Allie and Corianne contributed when they said in their slides that we should work smarter, not harder. Right? We need to trim the fat, make sure that we're not spending time on things that maybe we don't need to. Learn from your failures. I really like what Jared said about how failure is learning. It isn't necessarily a bad thing. We're constantly learning. We need to figure out how to address the market that we're targeting and make sure that we're solving those problems. And that was pretty much my 2 slides there.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and kick us off with whenever it comes to chapter 3 of Learn, what does the author mean by learn and do we agree and why? So, just like what Brian was saying, we definitely need to be able to fail to learn. I think that that is so important. And I believe that the author was stating what he means is that he needs to be able to, you need to be able to measure progress according to your plan, build a sustainable company. And then, of course, just like what Brian said, failure is a learning experience. You have to be able to mess up and comfort for moving into areas of the unknown. And then you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Jared. Thank you. And so this proves that the most vital function, of course, has to be learning because learning is always going to create instinctual habits. It's going to help you effectively problem solve, and then it's also going to help you decipher through the scientific method that also helps you while you're in the process of learning. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to Jared.
Yeah, and that flows right into chapter 4, looking at this evidence-based scientific method of experiments. It is very fast, very efficient, and it's efficient with the resources as well as is a huge part of this course is reducing waste. This takes a tenth of the time of traditional strategic planning models, and really what the book, one thing that really stood out to me in the book was if you can't fail, you can't learn. And that's the whole point of this is to learn what your customer needs and what they want to be able to give them exactly what they need there. So you want to release the MVP in the experiment, and you're looking for early adopters because they're going to give you the best feedback, and you're going to be asking these questions and answering these questions along the way. But I really wanted to give the example of Zappos. They wanted to see through their experiment if there really was a demand out there for online shoe shopping. You can't necessarily go to the store, try it on, everything. Does that really work? So they made this small experiment. They took pictures of the products in a shoe store. They made a little partnership with a shoe store, and they said, "Hey, if someone buys it online from us, we'll come back full price, no questions asked. We'll buy it from you and then sell it to the customer." But through this little experiment, they found out more than just their underlying question of is there a demand. They had to work with customer service and payments and returns and everything that was going on. And through it, they found out what the customers really wanted, and they asked them real questions. They didn't try to do hypothetical research on the market, but they actually got their hands dirty and answered many more questions than hypothetical research.
Yeah, good information there, Jared. I like how you kind of tied in the Zappos stuff, bringing in real life examples that kind of demonstrate the concepts of the material. I like that because, I kind of relate it back to my work. When we treat patients, we send out forms to them and try to figure out, are they happy with their care? And we don't send that out after the care, we send it out during. That way we can identify problems and make sure that we're correcting those issues and making sure that we're addressing problems in real time. So my slide right now, slide 9, is really about the leap, when they refer to the leap. And that's referring to the leap of faith, which is essentially what the entrepreneur envisions for the future. So the text suggests that it's important that we don't make assumptions that we're correct in our hypothesis. These aren't absolute facts. They need to be tested. And when you test a hypothesis, you can get a better idea of whether or not it actually has merit. So can your leap of faith be confirmed with the scientific method? And if so, then it makes sense to continue on that path. And if not, we need to make sure that we go a different route. The next slide is basically just kind of more an opinion. Do we agree with the author's idea that I kind of injected my opinion into it, and I find it to be agreeable. Entrepreneurship has to start somewhere. So the leap of faith is based on what maybe I feel, but we just need to make sure that what I feel is actually validated. But that's my perception. If anyone has any disagreement with the author, please feel free to mention it. But overall, I felt like it was pretty correct.
Thank you, Brian. And I do want to let you know, team, that we have almost a complete minute left of the meeting. So I believe that we can go ahead and kind of, even though I know it's a 1 minute, I do want to go ahead and say, Allie, I definitely loved what you had to say about empathy in the beginning, because whenever you definitely know your customer, I think that that definitely helps businesses out, create touch points and create a story for their customer. And therefore, they're able to market better their customer and, be able to sell their product. It's I didn't really know how else to say that, but I just wanted to say that I loved what you had to say in the beginning. And
Hey Sarah, I might want to stop the recording just to make sure it saves before it kicks us out.
all right, we'll do.
Mhm.